Have you ever wondered what treasures lie hidden in ancient cloisters? Bizarre objects holy women once guarded with fervent devotion. What strange, powerful items shaped the faith and fortunes of entire communities in the medieval age? Get ready to explore the unbelievable. Number 1. The Holy Navel Cord of Jesus. Deep within the stone walls of the Abbey of Sainte-Claire in Poitiers, France, a sacred and truly astonishing relic was once carefully preserved. This was not a fragment of a saint's bone or a sliver of the true cross, common enough in the medieval world. This was said to be the Holy Navel Cord of Jesus Christ himself. A thin, brittle, darkened thread, carefully coiled and encased in a gleaming silver reliquary shaped like a small, ornate basket. The Abbey of Sainte-Claire, established centuries before, held a reputation for deep spiritual devotion and aristocratic connections. Its nuns, often daughters of noble families, brought with them not only dowries, but also significant influence. This particular relic arrived at the abbey through a circuitous and often whispered history. It was said to have been brought from the Holy Land centuries earlier by a Crusader knight, Sir Gauthier of Poitiers, returning from a particularly harrowing campaign. Sir Gauthier, deeply pious and afflicted by injuries, reportedly received the relic as a gift from an aged hermit living in the desert near Bethlehem. The hermit, a man of profound wisdom and asceticism, claimed to have been entrusted with it by a long line of silent guardians tracing its lineage back to the earliest days of Christianity. Upon his return to Poitiers, Sir Gauthier, seeking spiritual solace and a place worthy of such an extraordinary item, presented it to the Abbess of Sainte-Claire, Mother Marguerite. The nuns, overcome with awe, immediately recognized its unparalleled sanctity. They believed it to be a tangible link to the very humanity of Christ, a physical remnant of his birth and infancy. The relic was placed within the abbey's most secure and hallowed chapel, behind a locked grille, only brought out for the most solemn of feast days. The veneration of the Holy Navel Cord quickly grew beyond the abbey walls. Word spread through the surrounding countryside and into the wider kingdom. Pilgrims, from humble peasants to powerful lords, began to make the journey to Poitiers, seeking blessings and miracles. They believed the relic held particular power over childbirth and infancy. Pregnant women would travel for days, enduring hardship, to pray before the reliquary. They sought safe deliveries, healthy infants, and protection from the devastating infant mortality rates that plagued the medieval world. Mothers who had lost children would kneel, tears streaming, imploring the relic for a blessing on their subsequent pregnancies. There were countless stories told in the taverns and village squares of women who, having suffered multiple miscarriages, finally bore healthy sons and daughters after visiting Sainte-Claire. It was whispered that the cord, still connected to the essence of Christ's early life, could mend barrenness and strengthen the fragile beginnings of human existence. The nuns of Sainte-Claire took their guardianship seriously. They maintained meticulous records of the pilgrims who came, noting their petitions and any reported miracles. These records, transcribed by diligent scribes on vellum, spoke of children recovering from inexplicable fevers, of infants born without the dreaded evil eye, and of mothers who survived the perilous process of childbirth against all odds. On the Feast of the Nativity, the reliquary, carried by the oldest and most revered nuns, would be paraded through the abbey's cloisters, the light catching on the silver, illuminating the dark thread within. The air would fill with incense and the sound of Gregorian chants voices, rising in praise of the relic's holy power. The nuns would often touch small cloths or rosaries to the reliquary, believing this would imbue the objects with a residual blessing, making them potent talismans for their families and communities. This sacred cord, though small and seemingly insignificant in its physical form, was a monumental symbol. It represented the tangible link between the divine and the human proof of Christ's earthly incarnation. For a time when every illness, Every misfortune was seen as a divine test or a demonic attack. A relic promising protection from the most fundamental vulnerability of human life, birth, and infancy was beyond price. The donations from grateful pilgrims swelled the abbey's coffers, allowing for expansions to the church, the construction of new dormitories for the growing number of nuns, and the acquisition of illuminated manuscripts for the scriptorium. The Abbey of Sainte-Claire, through this strange and intimate relic, became a beacon of hope and a powerful spiritual center, its reputation intertwined irrevocably with the fragile ancient thread of the holy Navel cord. Number 2. A feather from the wing of the Archangel Gabriel. The Benedictine Abbey of Saint-Hilaire-du-Lac, nestled beside a quiet lake in a remote region of Burgundy, France, a relic of truly ethereal origins, was safeguarded for centuries. This was not a piece of a saint's garment or a bone fragment. It was said to be a single feather from the wing of the Archangel Gabriel, the very messenger who announced the coming of Christ to the Virgin Mary. The feather, a shimmering iridescent blue-white, no larger than a dove's, was enshrined within a magnificent reliquary of gold and crystal. Crystal was cut in facets, allowing the light to catch the feather's subtle gleam from every angle, making it appear as though it vibrated with an inner light. The Abbey of Saint-Hilaire-du-Lac was founded in the early 10th century, known for its rigorous adherence to the Benedictine rule and its deep commitment to contemplative prayer. The story of the feather's arrival at the abbey was shrouded in legend, passed down through generations of nuns during their daily chapter meetings. It was said that the feather did not arrive by human hand, but rather through a miraculous occurrence. During a particularly harsh winter in the late 12th century, the region was gripped by famine and a terrible plague that devastated the population. The nuns, desperate, engaged in continuous prayer and fasting. One cold, moonless night, as the abbess, Mother Agnes, knelt alone in the chapel, an unearthly glow filled the space. A gentle, soft, rustling sound, like the whisper of wind through silk, filled the air. When the light faded, Mother Agnes found the single perfect feather lying on the altar, pulsing with a faint luminescence, overwhelmed. Mother Agnes called her community together. They interpreted the feather as a direct sign of divine intervention and the promise of heavenly protection. It was believed that the Archangel Gabriel, in his compassion for the suffering humanity, had shed a part of himself as a tangible sign of hope. Plague, they noted, began to recede from the abbey's immediate vicinity shortly after the feather's appearance, and the winter loosened its grip, bringing forth a bountiful spring. This was seen as undeniable proof of the feather's miraculous origins and protective powers. The feather quickly became the abbey's most prized possession and its most significant draw for pilgrims. People came from far and wide, seeking the angel's blessing. The feather was believed to possess powers related to communication, revelation, and safe passage. Those undertaking long and perilous journeys, be it merchants traveling trade routes or soldiers going to war, would visit the abbey to pray before the feather, hoping for swift and secure passage and a safe return. Scholars and scribes, grappling with complex texts or seeking divine inspiration for their work, would make pilgrimages believing the feather could bestow clarity of thought and profound understanding. Young men and women contemplating monastic life would come, seeking guidance and a clear sign of their true calling. The nuns of Saint-Hilaire-du-Lac developed elaborate rituals around the feather. On the Feast of the Annunciation, the day commemorating Gabriel's visit to Mary, the feather was paraded through the abbey grounds, held aloft by the abbess herself. Procession wound through the cloisters, the nuns singing hymns, their voices echoing off the ancient stone. Pilgrims would line the route, many falling to their knees, some offering small tokens of silver or woven cloths, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the iridescent object. It was said that on this day the feather's glow was at its strongest, sometimes emitting faint sparks of blue light, visible to those with true faith. The nuns would gently touch blessed water to the reliquary, and then sprinkle it over the pilgrims, believing the water now imbued with the feather's essence could ward off sickness and bring good fortune. The abbey's reputation soared, becoming a significant spiritual destination. The steady stream of pilgrims and their generous donations allowed the abbey to flourish. New wings were added, the library grew to hold hundreds of precious manuscripts, and the abbey's lands expanded, providing sustenance for the community and alms for the poor. The feather, though silent and inanimate, was seen as a living presence, a constant reminder of divine grace and the proximity of the heavenly realm. Its presence served as a potent symbol of hope in a world often overshadowed by hardship and uncertainty. The belief in its angelic origin was absolute, a testament to the medieval world's deep connection to the supernatural and its longing for tangible links to the sacred, even if those links took the form of something as delicate and fantastical as a feather from an angel's wing. Number 3. The Milk of the Virgin Mary. In the bustling city of Chartres, just a short distance from the magnificent cathedral dedicated to the Virgin Mary, stood the lesser-known but equally devout Nunnery of Notre-Dame de Bon Secours. This small cloistered community of Augustinian canonesses housed a relic that drew pilgrims for centuries, a vial containing the holy milk of the Virgin Mary. The vial itself was a small tear-shaped glass bottle, no more than the length of a woman's thumb, and within it, a dried, powdery white substance could be seen. The glass had yellowed with age, and the silver cap, once bright, was tarnished, yet the substance inside was considered pure and potent. The story of how this extraordinary relic came to rest in the Nunnery of Notre-Dame de Bon Secours was well documented in the Abbey's chronicles. It was brought to Chartres in the late 9th century by Charlemagne's wife, Empress Fastrada, as part of a collection of relics she had amassed during her extensive travels. Fastrada, known for her piety and her zealous collection of holy objects, reportedly acquired the milk from a convent in Constantinople. The Eastern Church, which had a long tradition of venerating relics of the Virgin, claimed this milk was collected from Mary herself by a holy woman present at the flight into Egypt. The Empress, convinced of its authenticity and its profound spiritual power, chose the Nunnery of Notre-Dame de Bon Secours due to its burgeoning reputation for female sanctity and its proximity to the growing veneration of the Virgin in Chartres. The nuns, deeply moved by the gift, saw it as a tangible sign of the Virgin's maternal love and compassion. They believed that, just as Mary had nourished her son, so too could her milk nourish the souls and bodies of the faithful. The relic was placed within an elaborate reliquary of gilded copper, shaped like a miniature shrine, and was often adorned with fresh flowers, especially lilies, symbols of purity. It was kept in the private chapel of the abbess only to be displayed on special occasions, or for individuals seeking specific intercession. The veneration of the Virgin's milk quickly attracted a specific kind of pilgrim: women. In an age where women faced significant challenges in childbirth, lactation, and the raising of children, this relic offered a direct, powerful connection to the ultimate maternal figure. Pregnant women sought safe deliveries, praying for strength and endurance. Nursing mothers would come, hoping for abundant milk to feed their infants, especially those struggling with poor lactation or sickly children. The nuns would often allow a small, clean linen cloth to be pressed against the reliquary, imbuing it with a blessing. These cloths would then be taken home and placed on a new mother's belly or wrapped around a struggling infant in the belief that the Virgin's essence would transfer to them. There were many stories of the milk's miraculous effects. Tales circulated of women who, after visiting the nunnery, found their milk suddenly flowing freely, saving their babies from starvation. Other accounts spoke of sickly infants who, after being touched with a blessed cloth from the reliquary, regained their health and vitality. The nuns meticulously recorded these testimonials, preserving them in their archives as proof of the relic's potency. On the Feast of the Purification of the Virgin, The reliquary would be carried in a solemn procession through the nunnery gardens, the nuns singing hymns dedicated to Mary, their voices a soft murmur among the flowering bushes. The abbess herself would bless jugs of water, believed to transform into a spiritual milk for the souls of those who drank it, bringing comfort and healing. The nunnery of Notre-Dame de Bon Secours became a haven for women, a place where their unique struggles and hopes found solace and spiritual aid. The donations from grateful pilgrims, particularly women from wealthy families, ensured the nunnery's prosperity. New dormitories were built, allowing more women to join the community, and the nunnery's charitable works expanded, providing food and medical care to the poor women of Chartres. The dried substance in the vial, though physically inert, represented a profound spiritual truth for the medieval mind. The divine nourishment of the Mother of God, available to all who sought her aid. It was a testament to the powerful, intimate connection medieval people sought with the sacred, finding comfort and hope in even the most peculiar of physical remnants. Number 4. A tooth of John the Baptist. In the secluded and ancient nunnery of Saint-Jean-d'Esprit in Brittany, France, a relic of profound significance and somewhat unsettling origins was carefully preserved. A single tooth, said to belong to John the Baptist. This relic was not a full skull or a major bone, which would be grander, but also perhaps more common. Instead, it was a small, yellowed human molar, surprisingly intact, nestles within a delicate gold filigree setting. This setting was then enclosed in a small, ornate rock crystal reliquary, shaped like a miniature grotto, symbolizing the desert where John preached. The nunnery of Saint-Jean-d'Esprit, founded in the 11th century by a devout Duchess of Brittany, was known for its austere practices and its commitment to the teachings of the Desert Fathers, making a relic of John the Baptist particularly fitting. The story of the tooth's acquisition was legendary within the community, steeped in tales of pilgrimage and divine providence. It was brought to the nunnery in the early 13th century by a group of Cistercian monks returning from a crusade to the Holy Land. These monks, during a brief and dangerous venture into the deserts of Judea, stumbled upon an ancient, crumbling hermitage. Inside, they discovered a hidden chamber and, amidst other forgotten artifacts, a small clay jar containing the tooth, accompanied by a faded parchment scroll claiming its provenance. Recognizing the immense spiritual value of the discovery, the monks brought the tooth back to France. Rather than keeping it for their own monastery, they felt a spiritual calling to present it to a community deeply devoted to penitence and prophecy. The nunnery of Saint-Jean-d'Esprit, with its strict rule and its sisters' dedication to ascetic lives, was chosen as the ideal sanctuary. The abbess, Mother Eleanor, was said to have wept tears of joy and reverence upon receiving the sacred object. She believed it was a divine sign, a blessing upon their fervent prayers for spiritual guidance and strength. Tooth quickly became the focal point of the nunnery's spiritual life. John the Baptist, as the precursor to Christ and a figure of uncompromising truth and repentance, held a special place in medieval devotion. Tooth was believed to possess powers related to spiritual purification, clear sight, and protection against falsehood and temptation. Pilgrims from all social strata, particularly those struggling with moral dilemmas, seeking guidance for difficult decisions, or feeling overwhelmed by sin, would journey to Saint-Jean-d'Esprit. They sought the clarity and courage that John the Baptist embodied. It was believed that praying before the tooth could illuminate the path of righteousness and grant the strength to resist worldly temptations. The nuns of Saint-Jean-d'Esprit developed unique rituals around the tooth. On the feast of John the Baptist's Nativity, the reliquary would be carried in a solemn procession through the nunnery's cloister garden, the nuns singing ancient hymns, their voices echoing in the quiet enclosure. The heart of the garden, beneath a weathered stone cross, the abbess would hold the reliquary aloft, allowing the sunlight to glint off the rock crystal, illuminating the ancient tooth within. Pilgrims would often bring small pieces of parchment upon which they had written their sins or their moral struggles. These slips would be touched to the reliquary by the nuns and then burned in a small brazier believed to cleanse the penitent's soul through John the Baptist's intercession. Some pilgrims, particularly those afflicted by illnesses of the mouth or throat, would seek a blessing from the tooth, hoping for healing from ailments that prevented them from speaking the truth or consuming nourishment. The nunneries' fame grew, attracting not only pilgrims, but also new vocations. The steady stream of donations from grateful visitors allowed the nuns to expand their library, dedicating more resources to the copying and illumination of sacred texts, particularly those of the prophets. The austere beauty of the nunnery's remote location, combined with the powerful draw of John the Baptist's tooth, made it a significant spiritual pilgrimage site. The small ancient molar, a seemingly insignificant fragment, was a powerful symbol for the medieval faithful, a tangible link to a voice crying in the wilderness, a beacon of truth and repentance in a complex world. Its presence affirmed the belief that even the smallest remnant of a holy figure could carry immense spiritual power capable of guiding and transforming lives. Number 5. A jar containing the breath of a saint. Perched on a windswept hill overlooking the dramatic coastline of Cornwall, England, stood the remote and austere nunnery of St. Morwenna. This medieval foundation, dedicated to an obscure local saint, was known for its deep spiritual isolation and the unyielding devotion of its resident sisters. But perhaps its strangest and most compelling treasure was a small, sealed glass jar, no larger than a fist, said to contain the very breath of a saint. Inside the jar, pilgrims could discern nothing but clear, empty space. Yet its emptiness was precisely what made it so profoundly sacred to its custodians. The jar itself was made of sturdy, ancient blown glass, slightly irregular, and stoppered with a thick cork, sealed with beeswax and the impression of a bishop's ring. It was set into a silver stand, shaped like a pair of cupped hands, holding it reverently. The story of the breath of Saint Elian, for that was the name of the saint whose breath it allegedly contained, was a cornerstone of the nunnery's lore. Saint Elian was an early Christian hermit, a recluse from the 5th century, who lived in a cave near the nunnery's eventual site, renowned for his profound wisdom and miraculous healings. The legend recounted that during his dying moments, as he imparted his final spiritual blessings to his few devoted followers, one of them, a young woman named Morwenna, who would later found the nunnery, was overcome with grief. In a moment of pure devotion, as his last words of comfort left his lips, she had instinctively caught his final breath in a newly fashioned glass jar, sealing it immediately. She believed that by doing so, she could preserve his spiritual essence, his wisdom, and his comforting presence for all time. The nunnery of St. Morwenna was founded centuries later, specifically to house this extraordinary bebecht and to continue the spiritual legacy of St. Elian and his disciple Morwenna. The nuns understood the relic, not as mere air but as the very emanation of a holy soul imbued with the saint's last prayers, his wisdom, and the divine grace that filled him in his final moments. They believed it to be a tangible concentration of spiritual power, a silent witness to a moment of profound sanctity. The jar was kept in a small consecrated alcove in the nunnery's main chapel, illuminated by flickering beeswax candles, creating a sense of deep mystery around its transparent contents. Pilgrims from far and wide would undertake the arduous journey to the remote Cornish coast. They came seeking a unique kind of spiritual aid. Those afflicted by speech impediments, those who had lost their voice due to illness, or those seeking eloquence for important tasks like public speaking or difficult negotiations, would make the pilgrimage. It was believed that the saint's breath containing his last blessings could restore or impart the power of clear and persuasive communication. Others sought solace for spiritual burdens, feeling that the saint's final peaceful exhalation could bring calm to their troubled souls and grant them spiritual clarity. People who felt lost or unsure of their direction in life would come, hoping that the captured wisdom would guide them. The nuns developed specific rituals around the relic. On the annual feast day of Saint Elian, the jar was carefully removed from its alcove and presented to the kneeling pilgrim. Abbess Mother Isolde would gently touch a small piece of blessed parchment to the outside of the sealed jar, then carefully tear off tiny fragments of the parchment and distribute them to the most fervent of the pilgrims. These fragments, though never touching the breath itself, were believed to carry its spiritual resonance. People would then ingest these tiny pieces of parchment, believing they would absorb the saint's eloquence or spiritual peace. The nuns also often blessed water by holding it near the sealed jar, believing the water would become imbued with the saint's silent wisdom, and this water would be offered to those struggling with mental anguish or confusion. The nunnery of Saint Morwenna became a spiritual lighthouse on the rugged coast, drawing those who sought not physical healing but profound spiritual and communicative grace. The donations from pilgrims, though often modest due to the remoteness of the location, sustained the small community, allowing them to maintain their ancient buildings and continue their quiet, contemplative life. The empty jar filled with nothing visible to the eye was a powerful paradox for the medieval mind. It represented the unseen power of the spirit, the essence of sanctity captured and preserved, a testament to the belief that the divine could manifest in the most intangible yet profoundly meaningful forms. It stood as a silent, invisible monument to a saint's final moment, a physical container for an ethereal blessing. Number 6. A piece of the cradle of baby Jesus. At the heart of the rolling hills of Tuscany, Italy, in the revered nunnery of Santa Chiara di San Gimignano, an object of immense tenderness and profound historical significance, a small dark piece of wood, no larger than a child's hand. This was said to be a fragment of the very cradle in which the infant Jesus slept. The wood was aged smooth from centuries of veneration, and held within a simple but elegant reliquary of carved ivory and gold, shaped like a miniature bassinet, resting on a crimson velvet cushion. The nunnery of Santa Chiara di San Gimignano, founded in the 13th century, was a community of poor clerics known for their devotion to poverty, simplicity, and the profound mysteries of the Incarnation. The story of how this precious relic arrived at their quiet sanctuary was a tale steeped in piety and historical connections. It was brought to the nunnery in the mid-14th century by a Franciscan friar, Brother Leon, who had returned from a perilous pilgrimage to the Holy Land. During his stay in Bethlehem, Brother Leon was granted access to a hidden grotto beneath the traditional site of the Nativity, where, according to ancient tradition, a small preserved fragment of the Holy Crib was kept by a community of early Christians. Brother Leonin was entrusted with a piece of this sacred wood specifically for a community that embodied the humility and tender devotion to the infant Christ. He chose the poor clerics of San Gimignano, recognizing their commitment to Franciscan ideals. The nuns, deeply moved, received the relic with tears of joy and reverence. For them, this humble piece of wood was a direct, tangible link to the earliest, most vulnerable moments of Christ's life. It symbolized his humility, his humanity, and the profound love of his mother Mary, who would have cradled him in it. The relic was placed in a prominent position within the nunnery's chapel, behind a delicate iron grille, allowing pilgrims to view it but not touch it. It became the centerpiece of their devotion, especially during the Advent and Christmas seasons. The veneration of the cradle fragment quickly spread. Pilgrims from all across Italy, from wealthy Florentine merchants to humble farmers, made the journey to San Gimignano. They sought blessings related to family, fertility, and the well-being of children. Couples struggling with infertility would travel to the nunnery, praying before the relic for the gift of a child. Mothers with sick infants would bring their children, hoping that the fragment connected to the health and purity of the infant Christ could bring healing and protection. Young women contemplating marriage and family life would seek guidance and blessings for a fruitful and pious home. The nuns believed that the relic radiated a gentle, comforting presence, akin to the warmth of a mother's embrace. The nuns of Santa Chiara developed specific heartfelt rituals around the relic. During the Advent season, especially leading up to Christmas Eve, the chapel housing the relic would be filled with the quiet murmur of prayers. The sisters would sing ancient carols, their voices soft and harmonious, creating an atmosphere of profound anticipation. On Christmas Day, the reliquary was removed from its usual place and brought forward, often placed at the foot of a small, beautifully crafted nativity scene. Pilgrims would line up patiently, waiting their turn to kneel and offer prayers before it. Small, swaddling cloths, often brought by new mothers, would be held close to the reliquary by the abbess, Mother Agnes, believed to be imbued with the relic's protective power. These cloths would then be taken home and used to wrap infants, a physical connection to the Holy Child. It was said that the presence of the fragment brought a deep sense of peace and a reminder of divine love to those who prayed before it. The nunnery of Santa Chiara di San Gimignano became a significant pilgrimage site, particularly for families and those concerned with domestic blessings. The steady stream of donations from grateful pilgrims ensured the nunnery's stability, allowing them to expand their charitable work, providing care for orphan children in the local community and alms for the poor. The small, unassuming piece of wood, a silent remnant of a profound historical event, served as a powerful reminder of Christ's humble beginnings and the tender love that surrounded his infancy. It stood as a testament to the medieval world's deep desire for tangible connection to the sacred narratives, transforming a simple piece of wood into a profound source of hope and comfort. Number 7. A bone from the arm of Saint Ursula. Nestled within the ancient city walls of Cologne, Germany, the nunnery of Saint Maria in the capital held a relic that spoke of incredible courage, brutal martyrdom, and profound sisterhood. This was not just any saint bone, but a bone from the arm of Saint Ursula, the legendary princess, said to have been martyred alongside 11,000 virgins. The relic itself was a long, slender bone, likely a radius or ulma, carefully cleaned and polished smooth. It was enshrined in a magnificent silver reliquary, crafted in the shape of a ship, symbolizing Ursula's voyage across the sea, and decorated with numerous tiny figures representing her virginal companions. The ship's mast was surmounted by a delicate crown, indicating Ursula's royal lineage. The nunnery of Saint Maria in the capital was one of the oldest and most prestigious convents in Cologne, founded on the site of a Roman temple and later dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Its history was intertwined with the very fabric of the city's spiritual identity. The story of Ursula and her 11,000 virgins was central to Cologne's lore, as the city was believed to be the site of their horrific martyrdom by the Huns. This particular arm bone of Saint Ursula was said to have been discovered during an extensive excavation of an ancient Roman cemetery just outside the city walls in the 10th century, a site long believed to be the burial ground of the virgins. A group of pious women, who would later form the nucleus of the nunnery of Saint Maria, undertook the excavation, guided by local legends and divine visions. Upon its discovery, the bone was authenticated by local bishops through a series of prayers and alleged miracles. It was then reverently brought to the nunnery of Saint Maria, which became its permanent home. For the nuns, this relic was not merely a bone. It was a powerful symbol of unwavering faith, purity, and strength in the face of unspeakable evil. It represented the ultimate sacrifice made for Christ and the enduring power of feminine devotion. The relic was prominently displayed in the Nunneries' main chapel, becoming a beacon for pilgrims from across the Holy Roman Empire. The veneration of Saint Ursula's arm bone quickly drew a diverse stream of pilgrims, especially women. Young women facing difficult choices regarding marriage or religious vocation would come seeking Ursula's guidance in upholding their purity and faith. Widows seeking strength in their solitude and protection from worldly dangers often made the pilgrimage. People facing persecution for their beliefs or enduring great suffering found solace in the story of Ursula's martyrdom, believing that her relic could impart courage and perseverance. It was also widely believed that the relic offered powerful protection against sudden death and violence, particularly for travelers and those embarking on dangerous journeys. The nuns of St. Maria in the capital observed elaborate feast days and processions in honor of Saint Ursula. On October 21st, the feast day commemorating the martyrdom, the entire nunnery and its surrounding streets would come alive. The silver ship reliquary, carried by the abbess and the most senior nuns, would be paraded through the city, drawing massive crowds. The air would resonate with hymns and prayers, and the sight of the shimmering reliquary glinting in the autumn sun inspired deep devotion. Pilgrims would press forward, some touching small pieces of cloth to the reliquary's base, believing these cloths would become imbued with Ursula's protective power to be carried on journeys or placed in their homes for safety. The nuns also carefully collected the dust that accumulated around the reliquary, mixing it with blessed water to create a potent elixir believed to ward off disease and misfortune. The nunnery of St. Maria in the capital flourished, its reputation inextricably linked to the powerful relic of Saint Ursula. The significant donations from countless pilgrims allowed the nunnery to expand its complex, adding new chapels, dormitories, and a vast infirmary that served the sick and the poor of Cologne. The bone, a silent testament to a legendary sacrifice, solidified the nunnery's status as a spiritual powerhouse, a place where faith, purity, and resilience were celebrated and sought after. It stood as a tangible connection to a heroic past, offering courage and protection to those living in a world often fraught with peril and uncertainty. Presence affirmed the belief that even a single bone from a martyred saint could hold immense spiritual power, inspiring countless lives and shaping the spiritual landscape of a great city.